Today the topic is going to be Shavuot. So let's start. It's going to be a topic which we didn't quite talk about it so far. There's many topics inside, but we're not going to cover all the topics, obviously. We don't have enough time. We only have 1 hour. So we're going to concentrate on one topic that has to do with Shavuot. כשם שענייני התורה ישנם בעולם למטה, just like everything, all the commandments, we have them down here in this world, כפי ששייכים לגוף גשמי, just like they are in a physical body, כמו כן ישנם ענייני התורה כפי שהם למעלה. So there is the matters of the Torah like it is in the upper worlds. So just like we have the physical Torah down here, there's the Torah that they learn up there in heaven. כי הנה קודם שירדה התורה למטה, before the Torah came down here, הייתה כבר התורה למעלה. The Torah was already there in the spiritual worlds. ועד, and until. How do we know this? We know this because when Moses, this Thursday, when Moses goes up to the mountain to receive the Torah, עד שהמלאכים ביקשו שהתורה תינתן להם, even though the angels ask that the Torah should be given to you, you can share, guys. You can sit and share. Yeah. So, ועד שהמלאכים ביקשו שהתורה תינתן להם, even though the angels ask that the Torah should be given to them, what did they say? They says, תנה הודך על השמיים. When God wanted to give the Torah to the Jewish people, the angels revolted. They came to God and says, if you want to give the Torah, give it to us. Why are you giving it to them? Okay. Where do we see this? Let's look at source number 1. Source number 1 says like this. ואמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, Rabbi Yoshua, the son of Levi, said, בשעה שעלה משה למרום, at the time that Moses went up to heavens, to Mount Sinai, אמרו מלאכי השרת לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא. The angels said in front of God. What did they say? ריבונו של עולם. It says, God, master of the universe. מה לילוד אישה בינינו? What is this guy who's a physical being? He was born out of a woman. What is he doing here? Who is he to be here? This is what they asked God. אמר להן. So he told to them, לקבל תורה בה. He says, he came to receive the Torah. That's what he's here for. We're on page 3 on the bottom. אמרו לפניו. So the angels told God, חמדה גנוזה שגנוזה לך 974 דורות קודם שנברא העולם. Says the special book, the special thing that it is dear to you, you have it for all these generations, even before the world was created. אתה מבקש לתנה לבשר ודם? You are looking to give it to flesh and blood? Says, what are you doing? What are you giving the Torah to men? And it says, you know what? We're going to give a proof from the Torah that you shouldn't give it to men. What's the proof? It says, look, the Torah says, Ma enosh ki tizgerenu. It says, what is a human being that you're even going to remember it? Uvin adam ki tifkedenu. And what is a son of man that you're going to be even counted? In other words, they're nothing compared to you. They're like ants. They're like less than ants. It says, you don't even recognize them. What are you even dealing with these guys? Hashem Adonenu ma'adir shimcha bechol haaretz asher tna otcha l'shamayim. So they told him, please God, give the Torah to us and not to men. So God looks at Moshe. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה. So God looks at Moshe and he says to Moshe, החזר להם תשובה. He says, answer them. We're on page 4. So Moshe says, אמר לפניו, Moshe said in front of him, ריבונו של עולם, מתיירא אני שמא ישרפוני בהבל שבפיהם. It says, so Moses says to God, look, if I'm going to open my mouth, just by the holiness of the words they can burn me. Forget about the rest. אמר לו, אחוז בכיסא כבודי וחזור להם תשובה. It says, don't worry, hold in the throne of glory and return to them an answer and give them an answer. If you hold in the throne of glory, you'll be safe. That's what he told them. Amar lefanav. So Moshe now is answering the angels. The angels demanded the Torah, so Moshe has to give him an answer. So what's the answer? So he tells them, Ribono shel olam. He says, Master of the universe, Torah she'ata noten li maktiv ba. It says, the Torah that you're going to give me, what is written in it? So it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotziticha me'eret Mitzrayim. It says, I am the Lord your God that took you out from the land of Egypt. Amar lahem leMitzrayim yaradtem. So he tells to the angel, did you ever went to Egypt? Do you know what Egypt is even? LeFaro ishtabad. Did you ever become a slave of Pharaoh? Torah lama te'elachem. The Torah, why should it be given to you? It's made for us. Shuv maktiv ba. And he continues and he says, what is written in it? Lo yeh lecha elokim acherim. It says, you should not have any other gods before me. Ben amim atem sruim. So he told the angel, what are you? You know of any other gods in your worlds? Are there other gods in your worlds? Shovdim avodat gelilim. Somebody in your worlds serves other deities? He says, no. Shuv maktiv ba. He continued and said, what is written in it? Zechor et yom HaShabbat lekodsho. It says, remember the Shabbos day to sanctify it. So he asked them, for you there's a difference between a Monday and a Shabbos? Every day is a Shabbos. You never go to work. Yeah? Klum atem osim melacha. On a Monday you guys go to work. There's a difference between Shabbos and a Monday. She'atem tzrichim shvut. You need to rest. Every day is the same. So this all Torah doesn't apply to you. Shuv maktiv ba lo tisa masa umatan yesh becher. It says do not cheat or do not take. Sorry, lo tisa shmi lashav. It says do not say my name in vain. It says, and when do you have to say God's name in vain? When there's two people who are arguing with each other, and one needs to make an oath. So it says, you can make an oath, you have argue with, you guys have business dealing with each other, you guys don't. Shuv maktiv ba, it says another thing, what is written in it? Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, it says, honor your father and your mother. Do you guys have fathers and mothers? Yeah, you angels, you don't. Shuv maktiv ba, again he says, what is written in it? Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov, do not murder, do not covet, do not steal. So he asked them, kina yesh benachem, you guys are ever jealous? Yetzer hara yesh benachem, do you guys have evil inclination to have all these rules applied to you? Miyad hodulu lakadosh baruch hu. So immediately the angel says, you know what? He's right. He's right. Miyad kol echad ve'echad na'asa lo ohev. So until now, they didn't like him. But all of a sudden, now they become, oh, this is a good guy. Now they started to love him. Not just, before they wanted him out of there. And now they become his lovers. Umasar lo davar. And every angel gave him a trick. Every angel gave him something. You know what? You deserve it. Here, take something. Shene'emar, because it says, Alita lamarom shavita shevi. Because it says, when Moses went up to the heaven, he captured all kinds of information. Lakachta matanot be'adam, and he gave these presents to men, whatever he captured from the angels. Besechar shekarucha adam, because they called you a man, lakachta matanot, you received presents. One of the presents we're going to discuss now, af mala'av chamavet masar lo davar, even the angel of death gave him something, gave him a present. What did he give him? Shene'emar vayiten et haktoret ve'yechaper al ha'am. Because it says Moses instructed Aaron how to stop the plague. How? With the incense. Va'omer ve'ya'amod ben hametim u'ben ha'chaim. This is the whole place where Korach went against Aaron, and there was a plague in the nation. It was started killing all the people. So Moses told Aaron, take the incense and walk between the living and the dead. Who gave him this information? The incense, 2 seconds ago, what did the incense do? The incense killed everybody. So why would you think that the incense can actually stop death? The only reason he knows it from the heavens, because God told them it's not the incense, it's their behavior. But the incense is the thing that can stop it. So it says, this is how all the information he received from heaven. Yeah. Up to here. Now we're going to go to the subject that we're going to discuss. Lichora eno muvan. The Rebbe says, I don't understand one thing over here. כיוון שאצל המלאכים לא שייכים ענייני התורה כפי שהם בעולם למטה. It says what? The angels didn't know that they don't have a father and mother. The angels didn't know that they were not in Egypt. The angels didn't know all these things. What did they want exactly? How did they even think, let's get the Torah? What do you mean, let's get a Torah? Let's get what? There's no Torah. What do you need it for exactly? כמו העניין של קידושי איש ואישה, it says, what are you talking about? The marriage between men and women, that belongs to you? That's not. By the way, we're going to see that the marriage between men and women is when? That's right. That's the marriage between God, who's the groom, and us, the Jewish nation, which are the bride. The groom and the bride get married when? This Thursday. On this Thursday, the groom and the bride are going to get married. שאינו שייך כלל אצל מלאכים. And marriage, there's no such concept by angel as marriage. They cannot do pruvu, they don't get married. There's no such concept. It's only by Jews. So the question is, they know that, so what were they asking? What did they want when they say, give us? אם כן, מה הייתה בקשתם שהתורה תינתן להם? So what were the angels demanding? Give us the Torah. They know they can do nothing with it. ועל כן צריך לומר, so we have to say, שהמלאכים ביקשו לקבל וללמוד את התורה כפי שברוחניות. It says the angel didn't ask for the physical Torah that's down here. We just says that the Torah existed before even the world existed. So that's the type of Torah they wanted. They wanted the spiritual Torah. That's what they wanted. They wanted the spiritual Torah to be down here. And what we're going to try to understand today, what does it mean, the spiritual Torah? שכן ענייני התורה ישנם גם ברוחניות. The matters of the Torah, not only in the physical world you have them, you also have them in the spiritual world. ותורה כזו, כמו שהיא ברוחנות העניינים, יכולים גם מלאכים ללמדה. And that Torah, the angels can learn. So, let's continue. We're on page 6. In order to understand this, we're going to tell a story that happened by one of the Hasidim. And from the story, we're going to start to deduce, hey, there's something very strange going on over here. So let's see. This is from Etzar Reshimot. It says like this. This was said by Rabbi Shmuel Ber. אספר לכם מעשייה. This is in his Yoman, in his diary. He writes, I'm going to tell you a story. כאשר הבטחתי אור לשמחת תורה, ולא תשאלו פרטי העובדה, כי לא אספרם. It says, I'm going to give you a story. Don't ask me for details. I'm not going to tell you the details. Yeah? I'm going to tell you the story without the details. In other words, whatever I wish to tell you, listen. Whatever I don't wish to tell you, don't ask. Don't ask. So it says like this. Rabbi Shmuel Ber מבוריסוב. There was a chassid, his name was Rabbi Shmuel Ber from Borisov. היה בידידות ביותר עם אדמו נשמתן עדן, הרבי רש"ב. He was very close to the Rebbe רש"ב. ואף על פי כן, על דבר העובדה דלקמן לא סיפר לו מעולם. Even though he was very close to the very רש"ב, he never told him this story. He never told him this story. And you're talking about a chassid and a Rebbe. And when you hear the story, you're going to see that he didn't tell him that there's something strange in the story. ורק שהרגיש שקרבו ימיו, so only when he saw that he's about to die, with the end of his time, סיפרה לאדמו"ר נשמתו עדן. He told it to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. So this person was the chassid of Rebbe Rashab. He was the chassid of Rebbe Rashab. He wasn't a chassid of after Rebbe Rashab passed away, he became a chassid of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yeah? But from the age of whatever to the age of 6, his entire life he was a chassid of the Rebbe Rashab. And he never told him the story. Just before he passed away, he's telling it to his son. So let's see what the story was. וזה דבר העובדה. So this is what he tells the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he tells him like this. In the year 1853, בליל Simchas Torah, it was during Simchas Torah, the night of Simchas Torah, נרדם רבי שמואל בר. Rabbi Shmuel Ber fell asleep. Simchas Torah, he fell asleep. ובצד בית הצמח צדק היה חדר צדדי שנמשך ומסתעף מן הבית כמיד כנף. And at that time, he was a small boy, maybe a little bit, not a small boy, but he was a young man. And the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, was the Rebbe at the time. And there was a room close to the Tzemach Tzedek's room. Let's put it this way. ושם דר אדמו"ר מהר"ש נשמתו עדן. And the son of the Tzemach Tzedek used to live over there. And that's right. לאחר זמן הקיץ רבי שמואל בר משנתו. So this Rabbi Shmuel Ber was sleeping in a room next to those Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe מהר"ש. והזדחל לחדר השני בדירת הצמח צדק. And he went from one room to another room in the apartment of the Tzemach Tzedek, in the house of the Tzemach Tzedek. והנה פתאום נפתחה דלת חדר הצמח צדק. Now, nobody knew he's there. He fell asleep. Nobody knew he's there. The door of the tzemach tzedek opened, ויראהו יוצא במהירות. And he saw the tzemach tzedek running, walking quickly. He said, oh, there's something happening here. ויצא וידפוק בחלון דירת אדמו"ר מהר"ש נשמתו עדן. And he went and he knocked on the door of his son. The tzemach tzedek knocked on the door of his son, and he just says, get up, I need you. So he's there's something happening, he wants to know what's going on. וייכנסו שניהם, הצמח צדק והאדמו"ר מהר"ש נשמתו עדן, אל החדר ששם בפינה עמד רבי שמואל בר. So they went into the room that he's hiding in the corner. And they're both in that room. ורעדה אחזתו, he started trembling. You've got over here the Rebbe and the son of the Rebbe. וישמע את הצמח צדק אומר לאדמו"ר מהר"ש. And he heard the tzemach tzedek said to his son, to the Admor Maharash, Nishmato Eden, he says, Zkeni, it says, my grandfather, his grandfather is the Alter Rebbe. He's already dead, passed away many years ago. So he says, the grandfather, he told him, my grandfather, which means your great-grandfather, הבטיח לבוא, he promised to come, I just got a message for him, and he said he promised to come, וללמד משנה במסכת סוכה. He's going to teach us, me and you, a Mishnah in Masechet Sukkah. In Tractate Sukkah, we're going to learn Mishnah. Now, you have to understand, the Rebbe Admoret Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Maharash don't need to learn Mishnayos. They know the Mishnah by heart, they know the Gemara by heart, they know everything by heart. So what is this guy so excited? That the Alter Rebbe is going to teach them Sukkah? Every 5-year-old, every 10-year-old knows Masechet Sukkah. It's nothing special, but he's going to teach it how? כפי שלומדים אותה בגן עדן. He says, I'm not going to teach it the way it is learned down here. I'm going to teach it the way we learn it up in heaven. The way he's right now, learning it up in heaven. In other words, up in heaven, there's such a thing as schach. Schach up in heaven is something else that we have right now. There's walls up in heaven. There's 4 sides or 3 sides. There's 2.5 sides up in heaven. Everything means something spiritual. Every detail is a spiritual thing. ושניהם נכנסו לחדר הצמח צדק. It says, and then both of them went to the room of the tzemach tzedek. Now, he wants to listen. So what does he do? ויגש רבי שמואל בר אל הדלת. He goes to the door. וישמע דיבורים אחדים. He heard a couple of words. And then וירדם, and he fell asleep. In other words, it was too much for him, and he fell asleep. He wasn't tired. It wasn't that he was tired. He fell asleep. He didn't hear the whole story. Okay? So right now we discovered there's such a thing as the spiritual world. So now we want to understand, when it comes to the marriage, when it comes to this Thursday, the marriage between God and the Jewish people, we're going to learn the Gemara or the Mishnah, whatever we're going to learn. This is going to be in the physical world. And we're going to try to understand, how do the angels learn this Mishnah in the spiritual world? Okay? So let's try. So it says like this. This is in Masechet Kiddushin, Talmud Kiddushin. It says like this. Ha'isha niknet, it says when you betrothed a woman, You marry a woman, how? There are 3 ways how a person can marry a woman. Bekesef, you can give her cash. Can give her something valuable. Cash today has no value at all, just a document. Bitcoin. Yeah. Silver, Bitcoin does mean is nothing. You cannot buy a woman with a Bitcoin, not with a check of $1 million, not with a $100 bill. It doesn't work. You have to give it silver or gold.
Diamonds also work.
Diamond probably yes. Yeah, but it has to be something which has a value. Oh, kesef bishtar. No. We're going to see what shtar is. Or we're going to say a shtar is a document. You can write it in the document, whatever we're going to say, or bibia, or through. No, Ketubah is not shtar. Something else. Ketubah came 1,000 years after shtar. Yeah, Ketubah is your obligation to the wife. It has nothing to do with the marriage ceremony. Yeah, ubebia. Bia means relationship, cohabitation. So Rashi says, kesef, money. What does money mean? Noten la kesef or shve kesef. He gives to her money or something that is worth money. We were just in a wedding last week, and if you remember, the Rabbi asked the Eidim, the witnesses, to look at the ring. We use a ring today, a golden ring, and he asked them, is it worth at least a pruta? Is it worth at least a penny? That was the question. It needs to have the value of at least a penny. So he said, is it worth at least that? So I told him, yeah. So he gives her money, and he says to her, Harei at mekudeshet li. It says, behold, you are betrothed to me. We're going to talk about what does the word mekudeshet is later on. Shtar, kotev la laniyar, af al pi she'eno shaveh pruta. He says he writes on a piece of paper, even though the piece of paper is not worth anything. What does he write? He doesn't write value of money. There's no money here. What does he write? Harei mekudeshet li. Instead of talking, he writes, you are betrothed to me, and he gives it to her. If she takes it, she's married. That's it. That's shtar. That's why it means a document. Ubia. What's bia? Relationships. Ba'alea ve'omer. He engages in relationship with her, and he says, just like the shtar, says, this is going to be the thing that we become married in. Ve'omer itkachi li bebi'ah zeh. It says, you're going to become my wife with this relationship. Okay. בהתחלת מסכת קידושין שנינו, in the beginning of מסכת קידושין we learned, האישה נקנית בשלושה דרכים, that the woman gets married in 3 different ways. There's 3 different ways a woman can get married. כסף, שטר וביאה. Money, document, or relationship. ובפשטות הדברים, the simple explanation, שמדובר אודות הקשר והשייכות בין איש ואישה בישראל. So the simple explanation, we're talking about a man and a woman getting married. שנקרא בשם קידושין. We called it קידושין. What does קידושין mean? קידושין comes from the word mikdash or kadosh. In other words, you make her like a sacrifice. Kadosh. No one else. It says, once you take a sheep and you sanctify it and you make it holy, right? The only use of the sheep, she can only be used for the temple. That sheep can only be used for the temple for sacrifice. You cannot allow to do anything else with the sheep. So kiddushim is the woman. You say to the woman, "Do you agree to become only mine?" In other words, when you mitkadeshetli, you become betrothed to me. You're not allowed, just like hekdesh to the entire world. Just like nobody else is allowed to use the sheep that was donated to the temple, nobody else is allowed to have relationship with you. That's the idea behind it. שהאיש מקדש את האישה, the man makes the woman holy, והאישה נעשית מקודשת לו, and that woman only becomes holy to him, to no one else. ומבואר בגמרא, and the Gemara explains, שהקשר בין איש ואישה נקרא בשם קידושין. Why do we call it קידושין or holy? From the word mikdash or holiness. לפי שאסר לה הכול לעלמא כהקדש. Just like if you donated anything to the temple, now nobody is allowed to use that thing for the temple for his use. Let's say I say my car belongs to the temple. So from now on, no one will be allowed to use this car for any other purposes because this car belongs to the temple. So the same thing with the woman. When you say, you belong to me, you become hekdesh to me, it says no one else is allowed to have the use of you. Only me. That's the idea. היינו שנוסף לכך שנעשת שייכות מיוחדת בין האיש ואישה, besides the fact that there's a relationship now between the man and the woman, נתווסף גם ביחס לכל העולם. Now there's an addition, that שאסור לערכו לעלמא כהקדש. Anybody who touches her, it means like he's touching something that belongs to the temple. That's how severe it is. It is just like touching something that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the temple. It belongs to God. What are you touching it? Okay, this is why we call it kiddushin, because she becomes hekdesh. Page 8. ולא עוד, and not only that, אלא שהיחס השלילי לכל העולם, that the fact that right now nobody else is allowed to touch her, nobody else is allowed to have a relationship with her, הוא עניין עיקרי. It's not just a side issue. This is the main issue. That's why you call her hekdesh. You said this is what hekdesh means. עד כדי כך שעל שם זה נקראת כללות הקשר והשייכות שבין אש לאישה בשם קידושים. Until we call it קידושים. In other words, the main part you would think is the relationship between me and you. No, the main part is that nobody else is allowed to touch you. That's how you call it. Right now, no one else can touch you except me. Yeah. Source number 4. Let's continue. ומה טעמה של לשון זה של חכמים שקוראים לקיחת אישה קידושים? Why did the sages called marriage קידושים? They make something holy. משום שאוסר אותה בעלה בקידושיה על כל עולם כהקדש. Because the husband makes it forbidden for the entire world to be with her, just like a sacrifice that you're not allowed to use it for your own purposes now. Like a sheep, like whatever. ולכן משתמשים בלשון קידושי אישה. This is why we say, not marriage, we say the word קידושים, like sanctifying of a sacrifice, sanctifying of property, whatever it is. So if you want to sanctify to God, now, there are 3 ways we can sanctify ourselves to God. And this is what we're going to, so a person who wants to get attached to God, we're going to see, there are going to be 3 ways where he can attach himself to God. And there's 3 different ways, as we're going to see. ועניין זה נעשה ב3 דרכים. And the husband can sanctify his wife in 3 different manners. כסף, שטר וביאה. He can do it through money, through value, through a document, or through relationship. כמבואר פרטי הדברים בזה המשך דברי המשנה והגמרא. Just like the Mishnah and the Gemara teaches us. וכללות החילוק בין 3 הדרכים שהידוע נקראת האישה לבעלה. So what are the difference that a woman becomes betrothed or מקודשת to her husband? So let's go one by one. How does a woman gets betrothed by כסף? So it's like this. כאשר האיש נותן לאישה כסף, when a person gives to a woman money, או שווה כסף, or anything that is worth cash, anything that is worth money, הרי אינו נותן חלק מגופו. It's not like he's giving himself. He's not giving anything for himself. He's giving something external. This is not who he is. He's giving cash. Cash is not me. You know, I work, I can use it for this, I can use it for that. כי אם דבר חיצוני בלבד, he's not giving himself, he's giving something on the outside. אבל דבר חיצוני זה צריך להיות בעל חשיבות. But when you give, not you give something from the outside, it has to have importance. In other words, she has to be able to gain some kind of benefit from it. It cannot be something that has so low value that she cannot buy with it anything. You know, like there was a grush ba'aretz. So there was a time you can buy something with a grush. But after a time you couldn't buy anything. So you couldn't get married with a grush. If you can buy something, I don't know, you can buy a bazooka. You know, you can buy a gum for five grush, then you had to give at least 5 grush. It has to have some value. 1 grush has no value. Like it says, להיות חשיבות, פרוטה ושווה פרוטה. It has to buy something. Yeah? The least amount of thing, it doesn't matter, but it has to buy. שבזה יכולה לקנות חיי נפשה. Something that she can buy something with. In other words, she has...
חיי נפשה, if it's more than פרוטה.
Anything. As long as she can buy a mastic, it's good enough. There's something to buy with it. A button. She can buy one button. Good. If she cannot buy one button with it, it's not good. מה שאין כן פחות משווה פרוטה, but if he doesn't have the value, שאינו דבר חשוב, then it's not important. להיות קשור עם חוץ הנפש. In other words, she cannot sustain herself even a little bit. She cannot even eat, one little thing. This is כסף. שטר. So כסף, you don't give something of yours. Not something from you. What does a שטר do? A document. גם כאשר השטר כשלעצמו אינו שווה פרוטה, so the document itself has no value at all. You just say, hey, this woman belongs to me, please sanctify yourself to me with this document. That's all you say. מכל מקום, כאשר הבעל כותב על השטר הרי את מקודשת לי, when the husband writes on this document, you become my wife, והאישה מקבלת את השטר ברצונה, and the woman receives it with her own free will, הרי היא מקודשת, then she becomes sanctified. ביאה, that's the שטר. שטר, you kind of make a...
What's the value in the star?
There's no value. It's,
she can buy.
It has no value. All it says that there's a relationship between me and you. It's a document like partners. Me and you are partners. Partnership. That's what it says. It has no value. But there is a part. You see, with the money, there's nothing from you. With the shtar, you become partners. It's already higher. You didn't give anything of you in a money. In a shtar, you already are. There's something there between your essence. Your essence and her essence are together. Whatever it is, I don't know what it means. Yeah, but you became one entity. In other words, there's a bond between you and her. In the money, there's no bond between you and her. You just say, okay, you see the difference? And bi'ah and relationship, that's really now. That's a really, you became one person now. It's not just a thing. ביאה היא השייכות הפנימית בין האיש לאישה. This is how you're going to make new life. Do the commandment of be fruitful and multiply. ועל ידי זה נעשה תכלית עניין הקידושים. פרו ורבו מיעוט הארץ. Now you can bring children into the world. This is what the kiddushin is all about. So, by the way, there's no shtar in biah today at all. We only do kesef. Right? No shtar in biah. Doesn't accept it. Even though it's from the Torah. The Rebbe took it out. ויש לבאר, that doesn't mean to say that the person did biah, right, and cohabited with the woman, is not married. He's married, but the Rebbe don't like it. Yeah. יש לבאר תוכן כללות עניין הקידושים, וחלותם על ידי שלושת דרכים לעד ברוחניות עניינים. So now we're going to learn. We said this is an analogy to the relationship between God and the Jewish nation. So we want now to understand these three levels of how we can connect to God. We are the woman. How can we connect to God on those three levels? We can connect to God. In order to be married to God, we can get married to God in any of those three ways. Right? And by the way, we're going to see that we can choose. It's our choice which one in the spiritual realm we can connect to God. We can decide how to connect to God, how to be his wife. So let's see. Amar Rabbi Akiva, source number 5. Rabbi Akiva said, אין כל העולם כולו כדאי, כיום שניתר בו שיר השירים. It says, the entire world was worthwhile just for the day that the Song of Songs was giving to the Jewish people. The Song of Songs was written by King Shlomo, King Solomon. So Rabbi Akiva says, this is the most special thing. שכל הכתובים קודש, ושיר השירים קודש הקודשים. Because it says everything else is holy, but the Song of Song is the holy of holies. Now, let's just, I have to explain this a little bit. I'm just going to make it as quick as possible. There are 24 holy books that will comprise the Tanakh. Now, the sages, when the books were brought in to become holy books, there was great debates which books to accept as holy and which books not to accept. And the sages did not want to bring the Song of Songs into the Holy of Books. For a simple matter, if you're just going to read the Song of Songs, it's a love story between a man and a wife. That's all it is. You can see it's a love story. It says, until Rabbi Akiva came, and he explained, Rabbi Akiva, that this whole love story between a man and a wife, it's actually an analogy between God and the Jewish people. And it's the bond between God and the Jewish people. In other words, the Matan Torah of God and the Jewish people, because it was so controversial, the whole topic over there. It sounds like whatever, a love story. How are you going to make a love story between a man and a wife? You're going to make that into a holy book? So until Rabbi Akiva explained this whole thing, it wasn't accepted. So Rabbi Akiva, once it was accepted, says, this is the greatest day that can be. Okay. So Muvabed Medrashei Chazal, so it brought down in the words of Chazal, we're in page 10 in the middle, שכל שיר השירים רומז לעניין הקידושים שבין הקדוש ברוך הוא וכנסת ישראל. That the entire Song of Songs is the relationship between God and the Jewish people. שהקדוש ברוך הוא הבעל ואת ישראל היא אשתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. God is the husband and we are the wife. וכן מובא במשנה מסכת תענית. This is the Mishnah also in תענית. ביום חתונתו, it says, when did God, it says, in the day of his marriage, in the day that God got married. It says, when did God get married? So it says, when? זה מתן תורה, at the giving of the Torah, when we became his wife. היינו שבשעה שהקדוש ברוך הוא נתן תורה לבני ישראל, at the time that God gave the Torah to the Jewish people, אזי הייתה חתונה בין הקדוש ברוך הוא וביניהם בני ישראל. Then it was the wedding between God and the Jewish people. By the way, how did God marry out? כסף שטר וביע. Which one? Money, שטר וביע.
תורה, מה זה התורה?
No. Shtar, very good. The Torah is a shtar. The Torah is a document. It's a document that says, I am yours and you are mine. I'm your God and you are my nation. Yeah. I'm your God and you are my nation. That's what it says. והיינו, שבשעת מתן תורה, that at the time of מתן תורה, בחר הקדוש ברוך הוא בבני ישראל. God chose his nation. ובן, like we say, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון. It says, you chose us from all other nations. שיהיו קשורים עמו. You chose us to be one with you. כמו שכתוב, ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש. It says, and you're going to be to me a holy nation. ועניין זה נקרא בשם קידושין. In other words, God sanctified us. He made us בשם קידושין. כלשון הכתוב, גוי קדוש. In other words, he told us, you know what happens to you? We're on page 11 at the top. It says, you know what happened to you right now, Jewish people? You become sanctified, just like a sheep. A sheep, in other words, this sheep can only be used now from now on for what? For holy purposes. In other words, your entire life from now on has to be what? Holy purposes. In the Lashon of the Tanya, he tells the Jewish people, from now on you have to be what? In Tanya, in the words of the Tanya. You're right, mine. What is that? In the words of the Tanya, you're not allowed to do what? You have to be what? You have to be Beinoni. You have to be a Beinoni. In the Lashon of the Tanya, for those who learn Tanya, we'll see how it's there. Kiddushin, in other words, I sanctified you. You're not allowed to touch anything. Nothing in the world is allowed to use you anymore except me. I'm the only one who is allowed to use you from now on. Allowed to use the Jew. In other words, every act has to be with me in mind. Even when you eat, even when you drink, it has to be with me in mind. You cannot eat for another purpose. You have to eat for me. You have to drink for me. Right? כלשון הכתוב על דרך קידושי איש ואישה, just like a man and a woman, שעשה לה כולו עלמא כהקדש. He tells the Jew, now the entire world is forbidden to use you. The only thing that is allowed to use you is me. That's it. You are my slave. And therefore only my slave. No other gods you should go to. והיינו, שהיהודי צריך להסתכל על כל ענייני העולם, שהם אסורים עליו כהקדש. In other words, when a Jew is from now on, after Matan Torah, looks at the world, the entire world is supposed to be forbidden upon him. This is, unless you do the act, you eat the apple for God, this is not for you. You're not allowed to use it. The world is not allowed to use you, and you're not allowed to use the world. You only can do acts for God. This is what the marriage with God means. All my actions is for you now, not for somebody else. not for my evil inclination, not for my yetzer hara, not for... Everything is for you. כפי שמובא בגמרא מסכת ברכות, it says, כל הנהנה מן העולם הזה בלא ברכה, it says, anybody who eats an apple, God forbid, without making a blessing, כאילו נהנה מקודשי שמיים. It's just like you ate from a sacrifice that belongs to God. It says, one isn't allowed to. The apple itself belongs to God. If you eat it for the sake of God, then you're allowed to eat it. Otherwise, God didn't give you permission to eat it. אמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל, source number 6, כל הנהנה מן העולם הזה בלא ברכה כאילו נהנה מקודשי שמיים, שנאמר, and how do we learn this? It says, להשם הארץ ומלואה. God owns everything. And he sanctified you. Once he sanctified you, every act that you do, every action that you do, has to be with God in mind. ועל זה אמרו שהשידוך וההתקשרות של בני ישראל עם הקדוש ברוך הוא. So now we can learn the bond with the Jewish people and God, שכללותו הוא על ידי התורה. So this is how do we do it? By the Torah. ביום חתונתו זה מתן תורה. In the day of his wedding, this is מתן תורה. הוא בשלוש דרכים. So now let's see. There's 3 ways now to get this connection to God. There's 3 ways that God connects to us and we connect to him. Either with money, either with shtar, either with relationship. What does it mean? שהם 3 עניינים שבהם מתחלקת התורה עצמה. These are the 3 things that we discussed. ועל דרך מאמר חז"ל, just like the sages tell us in פרקי אבות that we're reading right now, על 3 דברים העולם עומד. On 3 things the world stands. Compared to these 3 things, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. The 3 pillars are Torah, divine service, and charitable acts. Page 12. היינו שכללות התורה נחלקת לשלושת העניינים. That the Torah is going to divide, our bond with Torah, with God, can be divided into 3 ways. עבודה, תורה, עבודה וגמילות חסדים. Learning Torah, עבודה, service of God, and kindness. ועל דרך זה ישנה גם החלוקה של כללות התורה של שיינים, שכסף, שטר וביד, that correspond to כסף, to money, document and relationship. והעניין בזה, so let's try to understand. שכללות המצוות נחלקים ל3 סוגים. We're going to see we actually have 3 kinds of commandments. Every commandment that Jewish people have can be divided into 3 categories. What are the 3 categories? Category number 1, מצוות שהן בגופו של אדם. First category is commandment that has to do with your body. For example, sitting in a sukkah, very good. You have to sit in a sukkah. Nobody can sit in a sukkah for you. Circumcision, very good. Putting on tefillin. I cannot send you to eating matzah. I have, you know, every Shabbos we make Kiddush, right? The Rabbi makes it Kiddush, or the owner of the house makes Kiddush, and most of the other people, they don't make Kiddush. They listen, right? Maybe they drink a little bit. What happened on Pesach?
Each one does his own Kiddush.
Why? Because it's a mitzvah begufo. It's a mitzvah with the body. To drink the 4 cups, it's a mitzvah on the body. Not, so this is the difference. It's a mitzvah on the, everybody has to eat matzah. You cannot have just like Shabbos, one of say, Motzi lechem min haaretz, and gives to everybody. It doesn't work. Everybody has to say, has to eat the matzah on Pesach. It's a mitzvah on the body. By the way, an interesting part, I don't want to get into it, we don't have much time, but marriage, the marriage ceremony is not a mitzvah on the body. For example, I can send you to betroth my wife. I'm going to tell her, take this ring, give it to her, and say, in this ring you are mekudeshet to me. And if you say that, then she's sanctified to me. So this is another example. I can send a shliach, I can send a messenger. Yeah. It does it beguf. The marriage ceremony. Yeah. So that's mitzvot shem begufo shel adam. So some commandments has to be with your body. You have to do it. רוב המצוות שאינם מצוות שבגופו. Now, most of the commandments, it's not in your body. אלא הם קשורות עם עניינים שבהם מתעסק ומתייגע בכל אישותו, שכללותיו הם נכסיו של אדם. For example, charity. Nothing, you have to give the charity, right? I can give or you can give my charity. For example, if I own a field, right? and I'm going to. I can leave the corner open to the poor, and I could tell you, Arya, do me a favor, tell the poor that they can take the corner. Same thing. I don't have to do it personally. I can tell somebody else to do it. It's not a mitzvah begufo. It's not a mitzvah on the body. And then we have mitzvot akshurot im kochot hanefesh. We have mitzvahs that have to do with my soul, with my being. For example, learning Torah. Learning Torah. Not only I cannot send a shliach, it's not even action. It's me. I have to change. My personality has to change. I have to change myself. See, with tefillin, I don't have to change. I just have to do the act. Over here, learning Torah, I have to change. 3 different levels of commandments, or 3 different levels of connection to God, as we're going to see soon. וזוהי חלוקה של שעות המינים, כסף, שטר וביאה. And this is what it means, the 3 levels, money, document, or relationship. ביאה, relationship, קיה למצוות שהן בגופו של אדם. This is a commandment, like we say tefillin. It is, I have to do it. I have to. A connection. I have to do the connection. Yeah, tefillin. If I don't do it, eating matzah. I have to eat the matzah. I cannot send a messenger to eat the matzah. Did I change by eating the matzah? No. Did I change by putting it to eat? It's an act. I just have to do it. That is kesef. That's bia. Sorry. Kesef לאו דווקא, it says, doesn't have to be money, אלא כולל גם שווה כסף, it means anything that is worth money. מתייחס למצוות הקשורות עם נכסיו של אדם, has to do with commandments that have to do with your possessions. Mezuzah, right? You have to put a mezuzah up on your door. You have to go buy a mezuzah and put it up on the door, right? And therefore anybody can do that. Yeah? The mezuzah is not a mitzvah on you, it's a mitzvah on the house. You don't have to put the mezuzah.
Do mitzvahs with your kesef?
Yeah, give charity. Take charity and give charity. But I don't have to do it now myself. Okay, go to my bank, take $5 and give it to charity. I don't have to do it myself. I can send somebody else. It was not. Yeah, it's not like tefillin.
Even if you lost $20 and the poor guy found it, you gave.
But then you did it. Over here, you can even send somebody else to do it. Yeah, and then the deepest one is which one? Is the shtar, is the document. In our case is what? Is the Torah. It says, why is that the deepest one? Because the Torah changes you. It's not just an act. It's refining your personality. You become a different person. You become something else. Something you weren't there before. שטר, שלמדים מגירושים, we learn this from divorce, שבהם נאמר וכתב לספר. We says, but when a man divorces his wife, he says he needs to write to her a book of divorce. So ספר. רומז על לימוד התורה שנקראת ספר. He teaches us this is learning Torah, that is called the book. ספר התורה הזאת, like we say, this ספר Torah. So now we're going to understand. Page 12 in the bottom. ועל פי זה יומתק. So now we can understand. A person wants to connect to God. He has 3 kinds of opportunities to connect to God. Some people are going to tell you, this kind of mitzvah is too hard for me, or this kind of mitzvah is too hard for me, or this kind of mitzvah is too hard. He says, don't worry. You can choose one. Choose. You want to connect to God one way, you can connect to God one way. There are 3 ways for a Jew to be able to connect to God. And if your personality doesn't agree with one particular way, it says choose another way that your personality agrees with. כשם שבקיום המצוות יש חילוק בין מצוות שבגופו למצוות שאינם בגופו, just like in commandments. There's a difference between commandments that you have to do with your own body, to between commandments that you can send a messenger, שבמצוות שאינם בגופו, that commandments that you don't have to do with your body, אפשר לקיימם על ידי המשליח, you can send a messenger, מה שאין כן מצוות שבגופו צריך לקיים בעצמו ולא עוזרת שליחות, but תפילין, you need to do it yourself, you cannot send a שליח, כמו מצוות תפילין, שאי אפשר לצאת ידי חובתו על ידי שליח, that you cannot bring a שליח, כיוון שזוהי מצווה בגופו, because this is a commandment that is in his body. כן הוא גם בשלוש הדרכים, כסף שטר וביאה. This is the same thing as kesef, shtar, and bia. Somebody says, I'm not that religious. I don't want to do something with my own body. It's too much for me. Yeah? So you tell him, you don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, you will have to eventually, but right now, in order to connect to God, you don't have to. You know what you can do? Do a mitzvah with your money. I need you to do the mitzvah with yourself. Don't be really. Start with your money. Open a school, open a hospital, give it. You see a poor person, make sure the poor person. You don't have to start to be religious, so-called. You can still bond to God in other manners. You don't have to bond with yourself, with your being. You can bond with an external part of you. What is an external part of you? Your money. There's a way to bond with God, even not you. You don't change. It will bond you. Don't worry. After you give a little bit, you will want to bond in a deeper level. First of all, you will start wanting to do the commandments of the body, like tefillin, and then you will even want to do the commandment of refinement. Tefillin is not going to be enough for you. You will want to become a new person, to change completely. This is the same way in the money, document, and bia. שבהם האישה נקדית, that in them the woman is bought. שקידושים בכסף ובשטר יכולים גם השליח. The kiddushin of money and document can be through what? Through shliach. Bia, you can't send a shliach. You have to do it yourself. Relationship, it has to be you. מה שאין כן קידושי ביאה אינם יכולים להיות על ידי שליח. They cannot be. You have to give yourself over. וזה תוכן העניין של האישה נקדית בשלוש דרכים. And now when we come to this Thursday, Matan Torah, this is what it means that the woman becomes betrothed in three different ways. שהתחלת ההתקשרות בין בני ישראל לקדוש ברוך הוא צריכה להיות לכל הפחות. It says a person needs to, this Thursday is coming up, a person needs to make a decision. I need to connect to God in one of these three ways. In other words, either become like God, in other words, learn Torah, become like Him, understand Him, refine myself that I become Him. That's one way to connect to God. That's the hardest way, maybe you can say. Yeah? Then there's a secondary way. Do the commandments. Things but in my body. And if that's also too hard, I can send a shliach. What's the shliach? My money. Not me personally. I can send a shliach. I can send my money also. It's also a bond with God. But something has to be done. Doesn't matter one. You can choose any of those three things. But you have to choose one of the three things. לכל הפחות, על ידי אחת משלושת העניינים נזכרים לעיל. And you're going to choose one of these ways. And don't worry, מצווה גוררת מצווה. One commandment will lead to another commandment. שהולך מחיל אל חיל. That a person is going to go from strength to strength. עד שיבוא לקיום כל שלושת הקווים. Until a person is going to come to do all three lines. שאז יהיה לא רק התחלת הקידושים, that means that he's not only going to be married to God, האישה נקנית, אלא גם שלמות עניין נישואים וחתונה של האישה הזאת לישראל וקשור. But there's going to be a copulation of God and Jewish people to bring Mashiach. I just want to mention one more thing, just a quick story. I heard it from a shliach that he works in the kotel. So there's a shliach that's what he does. He works in the kotel, he puts tefillin on people. So it says one Friday, he's by the kotel, he's offering people to put on tefillin. You know, the tourists. So he sees a tourist, the guy, and how do you know he's a tourist? He walks with a kippah from niyar, from paper. You know, they give in the kotel, those who don't have, they keep a paper kippahs. So he knows immediately, this guy. So he asks him, do you want to put on tefillin? So the guy is a kibbutznik. You know, he says, leave me alone, I don't have time for you. You know, I'm busy. I came to the kotel to pray. I have time to put on tefillin right now. Leave me alone. I don't want to put on tefillin. So the shliach tells him, okay, no problem. Do me a favor. Would you like to give charity? So the guy tells, I don't have. So he says, here, take a couple of pennies, put it in there, put charity. So he puts charity in, and then he goes in daven, and on his way out, he says, you know what? Let me put on tefillin. I want to put on tefillin. You know why? Because one commandment brings out another commandment. Once you're exposed to one commandment, even the commandment of what? Of just putting it, it's not you. Tefillin you have to do. You cannot send a messenger. Over here.
That's the example. He came by himself, tefillin I want.
Very good. One commandment brings another.
That's connected into Hashem.
והלימוד וההוראה מזה. And the teaching from this, אמרו חז"ל, the sages says, בכל יום יהיו בעיניך כחדשים, every day it should be like new, the Torah should be like new in your eyes, היינו, שאף על פי שכללות העניין של קבלת התורה והמצוות במעמד הר סיני לפני 2000 שנה, even though it happened 3,330, 3,300 years ago, מכל מקום, 36, thank you. מכל מקום צריכים בכל יום ויום לקבל מחדש את התורה והמצוות. Nevertheless, each and every day we need to make a decision to renew our connection to God. באהבה ובשמחה, with love and happiness, הדרך שהייתה פעם ראשונה, just like it was in the first time. והיו הדברים, where does it say this? This is the last page. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. And these things that I command you today on your heart, Rashi explains, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, that I command you today, what do you mean today? לא יהיו בעיניך כדוגמה ישנה. It's not like you're reading an old book. שאין אדם סופנה, that you don't cherish it, אלא כחדשה, but it's something that is relevant to now. שהכל רצין לקראתה. In other words, it's relevant for this day and age. תוגמה מצוות המלך הבא במכתב. In other words, it's not a decree of the king that happened 3,336 years ago. It's a decree of the king that came out today. ובעניין זה יש הוראה לכל אחד ואחד. This is the message to each and every one of us. ובפרט בחורים שנמצאים בעולה, especially young men. The Rebbe gave this talk to ישיבה בחרים. של תורה. שאצלה צריכה להיות חיות יתרה בלימוד התורה. It says, by you do the main, in other words, you are doing the main idea. You're becoming, refining yourself, you're changing yourself. ולימוד מביא לידי מעשה. And the more you learn, the more you're going to do with your actions. חיות יתרה בקיום מצוות, you're going to have live, you're going to do the commandments with special energy. שבכל יום ויום צריך חדש, that you need this energy every day like new. לקבל על עצמם את העניין של אסר להכולי עלמא כהקדש. And the main thing for yeshiva bachers is to know that the world itself, everything in the world is forbidden. Everything in the world has to be used for what? Only for God. Every object in the world, the obligation of the object is to take that object and use that object for God. If you want to use that object for yourself, you're allowed to. You became God's wife. God's wife means that you only can do things for God, nothing for else. היינו שמלבד עניין הקשור עם אמירת ברכה חולו, אין להם שייכות עם בני העולם. It says we shouldn't have any connection with this physical world. ובמה התעסקותם? So what do they have to do? ללך מחיל לחיל, to go from one level to another level in learning Torah, doing the commandments, in one of those three things that we mentioned above. One has to choose for this Thursday, either mitzvah shebegufa, a mitzvah that we didn't do if we don't put on tefillin every day until now. We should take upon ourselves to put on tefillin every day until now, something that nobody else can do for us. עניין הקשור עם אמונה והשגה. Also we should take something that has to do a little bit of more learning Torah. Yeah? If we come twice a month for classes, maybe should we come 3 times a month for classes from now on. And ועד לרוב המצוות שאינם בגופם כסף, and also commandments that are not in the gufo, in the money, which means that we can use the money that we find only for the services of God. In other words, when we have an option to use our money for ourselves or use the money for God, we choose to use the money for godly matters. ועל ידי זה נעשה השידוך והקשר שלה עם הקדוש ברוך הוא, קשר שקיים על כל השנה כולה. And this is the bond that we're going to have with God for the entire year.